Kicking off the list at number 10, what if the Fantastic Four had not gained their superpowers? Okay, the Fantastic Four, the FF, they got their powers when they were on a space mission, and all of a sudden cosmic radiation entered the chat. Powers were given to them all at the same time, each obtaining a hint of the elements. But what if this space mission didn't go south? What if that cosmic storm didn't get past the spaceship's shielding? Well, afterwards, the rocket group, that's what they're called after, becomes the highest ranking space industry, so even without powers, they're still awesome. But when Mole Man's monsters come along to attack, the team still comes out on top because science always wins. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be so great. It helps the channel out a lot. Or if you want to hit subscribe, our faces will pop up on your feed. How lovely is that? Number 9, what if Spider-Man had rescued Gwen Stacy? Yes, okay, I remember sitting in the theater watching The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is so underrated as a movie. Side note, it gets way too much for some reason. But when Gwen was falling in the clock tower, I held my breath. I knew what was gonna happen, and to this day, it's one of the saddest scenes in a comic book film. So this what if certainly helped ease that pain. Issue 24 shows us a world where he caught Gwen, and after that, it's beautiful. He proposes, he reveals his identity to her, and on top of that, Harry and Norman reunite. They work it out. All of the wins, look at this. And then when Peter and Gwen do get married at the ceremony, they're doing the cha-cha slide, which I personally love doing. But then J. Jonah Jameson bursts in with a bunch of police officers with footage that reveals Peter Parker as Spider-Man. So at this point, Peter was forced to run for the rest of his life to protect the ones that he loved. I had you in the first half. I know I did. These what ifs are mostly sad. Number 8, what if the Phoenix had not died? Issue 27 of What If again shows us a brighter future. Well, at least it starts that way. In this alternate reality, Jean didn't die. She was actually reborn again, and then when the X-Men have to take on Galactus and Terrax in the Shi'ar Galaxy, she uses that Phoenix Force to get the job done. She puts an end to Galactus, which sounds great on paper, but the Phoenix Force starts to amplify and get a little bit more and more out of control. So she accidentally destroyed a small star and other asteroids, and when she returns to the X-Mansion, she's now in hot water for destroying yet another star. Shadowcat is not pleased, so Jean turns into the Dark Phoenix and takes out Shadowcat, and Polaris, and Cyclops, and also planet Earth, and then shortly after consumes the universe. That escalated quickly, wow. Number 7, what if the Punisher was a hall monitor? Dipping into a more comedic side of things because the last two were just straight tragic, the Punisher as a hall monitor, short and sweet, and it couldn't get any better. He's watching the halls in a quiet, generic grade school in a typical town in USA. You can find this in volume 2, issue 34. It's pretty intense. I mean, it goes for the comedic take, but Frank Castle being Frank Castle in front of any children, that's a nightmare. They thought they were off the hook at the beginning of the issue. The kids reiterate the fact that the Hulk is no longer watching these halls, so they're fine. So once the Punisher sends them to the principal's office after getting caught, the last panel we see is the Hulk in the principal's chair now. It's a short one, but the idea is actually terrifying and hilarious all at the same time. Poor kids. I thought my principal was scary. I thought Mr. Hubert was scary. No, the Hulk is a bit more scary. A bit, just a little bit. Number 6, what if the Beast and the Thing continued to mutate? Volume 1, issue 37. When the Thing is being mutated from Virus X in the normal timeline, Captain America tells him about MODOK's base, but in this tale, the Thing takes off before he gets a chance to do so. So Captain America and Giant Man raid MODOK's base on their own, then they get the antidote that Bill can now use to cure his cancer. Ben reaches this point when he's evolving, and he ends up releasing all of this cosmic energy that 1, cured himself of Virus X, and 2, cured Alicia's blindness. Double win. Yes. Grimm is happy with the family, and the newly cured Giant Man takes Ben's spot on the Fantastic Four. It's good. This is a good one. We got one. Nice. Number 5, what if the Avengers had never been? Now, with all of these multiverse stories beginning in the MCU, it feels like the Avengers have never been further apart. It's exciting, but also a little concerning. This what if was actually the first what if issue with a major death, just 3 issues in. They're going for it. So we start off with the Hulk, and instead of smashing and hitting, he's dashing and quitting. He wants nothing to do with the team. So Rick Jones is sent to look for the Green Goliath, but he ends up being held hostage, where Tony Stark has to now come to the rescue. rescue. Now they make it back to the mansion, but Namor and Hulk want more. They challenge Earth's mightiest to the fight for their lives. Now Iron Man makes suits for Hank, Jan, and Rick, but they can't control the suits. It's too much for them, so they stay in retirement. So Stark powers up his own suit to the max, and then some more, so it's a lot of power going on, almost unobtainable. But then when the rest of the team finally do show up to the battle in Stark's other suits, Hank takes a hard hit. So Tony has to then transfer his suit's energy, that fat energy, in order to keep Hank alive. So even in this what if, Tony still throws his life down for others. How sweet. Number 4. What if Professor X had become the Juggernaut? In this reality, Professor X is the one who becomes Juggernaut and gets buried in the Temple of Sidorak. Now this caused him to go down a completely different path when it comes to the X-Men, because after this, well, he never created the X-Men, so now the Fantastic Four has to go against Magneto. So after Professor X Juggernaut head digs his way out, he discovers his telepathy was now much stronger with the added powers. What a treat. I mean, not really. He ends up taking over the country with his own X-Men posse to enforce these anti-human laws. Cyclops even sides with Magneto at this point because he's like, okay, at least this guy can block Xavier's telepathy. And it all comes down to this final confrontation with Cyclops and Xavier. They're battling it out on Asteroid M, and Cyclops is trying to remind Xavier about the vision, the original dream, with humans and mutants living together in perfect harmony. Doesn't that sound lovely? And then before he could really consider it, the ground beneath him exploded and he got launched into space forever. Oof! Number 3. What if Loki had found the hammer of Thor? The final issue of Volume 1 of What If, again, something we're kind of close to seeing in the MCU, especially with Loki Season 2 being confirmed. These timelines are about to be really enjoyable, and we might get a hint of this, I think. So Donald Blake ends up not finding the hammer because Loki tossed it into the woods, and then the Saturnians wiped out Donald. So Thor wakes up in the land of the dead, memory not included. This is all bad for Thor. It's not so much Loki using the hammer, he just alters the hammer's location, and then Thor's altered future is now a stressful one. Number 2. What if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? Okay, with John Watts directing the newest Spider-Man trilogy for the MCU and the upcoming MCU Fantastic Four reboot, this next what if might not seem that impossible. The first ever issue of What If finds Pete with a number 5 on his chest. The Fantastic Five has a ring to it. I kind of love the idea already. So Pete was low on cash, so he figured, you know what, I'm gonna break into the Baxter building and straight up force an audition for Marvel's First Family. So Sue recruits Peter and the team is formidable. They're great, they're solid. They're so good that Sue doesn't even feel like there's a need for her on the team anymore. There's always something sad. Don't do it, Sue. She ends up choosing Namor as her other half, even joining him in his kingdom under the sea. Now she did love Reed as well, but her departure from the team just made it work better with the fishy guy. Now if you want to see more of that altered storyline, because it is quite intriguing, jump ahead 20 issues once you're done this epic kickoff. And finally, coming in at number 1, what if somebody else besides Spider-Man had been bitten by the radioactive spider? This is perhaps one of my favorite what ifs because I genuinely have thought about what would happen if I was Spider-Man. I work for Top 10 Nerd, of course I'm going to daydream about this. Thing is though, I'm afraid of heights, so it wouldn't exactly be smooth sailing. But I can dream, right? Even in the Marvel Universe, other big names can't handle the webs. In this what if, we see Flash Thompson, Betty Brant, and John Jameson each get a swing at the sticky life. So Flash gets bit and then he decides to take a crack at professional wrestling with the new muscles and all. Now he may have underestimated his strength because he kind of accidentally killed the guy. You should have tapped. Oops. Next up, Betty Brant gets bit, and I have to admit her costume is for sure the most stylish. Very good, makes for great Instagram posts, sure. But when she runs out of web fluid making TikToks, the thief who took Uncle Ben's life was easily able to get away. She was like... And finally we see John Jameson's turn, and he goes out like a hero. He tries to stop a space shuttle from crashing, and it's a lot harder than it looks. If you're not Pete, just don't even try, honestly.
Number 10. Master Jonathan Storm. Master Jonathan Storm was a member of the Four from the Fantastic, who would become Count Otto von Doom's arch nemesis as well as his prisoners. He and the rest of the Four from the Fantastic would eventually end up escaping from Doom's clutches and resuming their adventures. Master Jonathan Storm, like the rest of the team, had received his powers while on a sea voyage after their ship had passed through a mysterious light. This light, it turns out, was actually part of the anomaly. Jonathan, like his 616 counterpart, can engulf his body in flame. Doom had to keep him directly underneath a constant waterfall just in order to smother his powers enough to keep him contained. Number 9. Enrique. Enrique is the 1602 version of Magneto, and he is overwhelmingly powerful because he not only gets to keep the powers of Magneto from 616, but he also holds an important position with the Church as their Grand Inquisitor. In the world of Earth 311, mutants are actually believed to be the devil's work and are referred to as witch breed. It was Enrique's job to hunt them down and wipe them out, but being a witch breed himself, and his children Wanda and Petros also being witch breed as well, meant that he did his best to help these 1602 mutants, executing only those whose mutations could not be hidden and were generally more physical mutations. Anyone he felt he could help, he recruited to his own brotherhood in an attempt to protect them. While in our world, Magneto is more a villain or perhaps an anti-hero, in 1602, the Grand Inquisitor seems about as heroic as he could be given his position. So I think we can count him a hero here. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to go to more alternate worlds, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Sir Nicholas Fury. Sir Nicholas Fury was a soldier who attained glory on the battlefield and was noticed for his service to the country and the crown by the Queen herself. She knighted Fury and also made him the head of her own secret network or service of spies. Nicholas Fury would recruit other heroes to his cause, and while he might not have any superpowers to speak of in this reality, he is a key player in many major storylines and battles of good versus evil in the world of 1602. He would go on to work for King James after the death of Queen Elizabeth, and later go rogue when he felt that his own beliefs for how to best keep the country and its citizens safe no longer aligned with his king's. He also kind of began to question whether or not he even cared really about saving the world, which, fair enough. Number 7. King James. King James I of England was more of a villain, I suppose, in terms of the narrative, but it is implied that he is also possibly known by a heroic name back on the Earth of 616. In 1602 Witch Hunter Angela issue number 1, it appears that King James is none other than a version of James Howlett. If this is true, it could be that his persecution of the witch breed was simply something he did in response to his own origins and hatred of his own abilities and of himself. But it's also unclear if this is the same King James. King James, in terms of his larger role in the world, took over as a ruler after the assassination of Queen Elizabeth. He was the driving force behind the Inquisition that sought to purge all witch breed from the country. King James was shown in 1602 Witch Hunter Angela to have powers similar to Wolverine of Earth 616. King James, as he appeared in Marvel 1602, was known for being the ruler of not just England but also of Scotland, and was making progress towards conquering and ruling Ireland as well. And if you're thinking, but wait a minute, King James in the 1602 reality was not very heroic. Yes, you're right, but the version of him that is kind of combined with Wolverine, Wolverine's a hero, and so by extension, that's why he's on the list. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Number 6, Virginia Dare. Virginia Dare is a unique character to come out of 1602, or she was intended to be unique anyways. Some have compared her powers to that of Canadian Marvel superhero Snowbird, but Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert, who created Virginia Dare, intended for her to be an original character in the sense that she was not made to be a mirror or counterpart to any 616 superhero that already existed. Virginia Dare's powers allow her to shapeshift into any creature, including animals and even mythological beasts. She was the first child born in the Roanoke colony, which in the reality of Earth 311 never mysteriously disappeared in the 1580s. Virginia received her powers from coming into contact with the rift that brought Captain America into the 1602 reality, and she was also friends with his 311 counterpart known as Rojaz. Number 5. Captain Benjamin Grimm. Like Master Jonathan Storm, Captain Benjamin Grimm also ended up imprisoned by Count Otto von Doom. But where Jonathan was kept beneath a waterfall, Grimm was confined to a room so small he could not even sit in it. For years, he continued to thrash against the walls, and eventually, he managed to put a tiny crack in the wall of his cell. This crack would prove to be Grimm's salvation, allowing him to escape his cell and free his fellow teammates, who then were able to join up with Sir Nicholas Fury, who was also there at the time and eager to rescue his old friend Sir Richard Reed. And if you're wondering how a tiny crack did that, well, the tiny crack was obviously the beginning of everything falling apart in his cell, so yay. Benjamin, like his 616 counterpart, has a body that is incredibly strong due to his rock-like form. He was also the captain of the ship the four from the Fantastic sailed on when they got their powers, named, of course, the Fantastic. Hence why they're the four from the Fantastic. Get it? Number 4, Stephen Strange. Or Dr. Stephen Strange if you want. Stephen Strange was taken prisoner by sailors, being sold by them to a doctor from whom he learned many things both of science and of medicine. While on a mission to retrieve herbs for his master in exchange for his freedom, venturing up into the mountains, he ended up almost dying, but fortunately was saved by the members of a monastery. During his time there, he learned the mystical arts, and after recovering fully, he was able to complete his mission, returning with the herbs for the doctor in order to gain his freedom back. He would end up becoming the physician to the Queen of England, Elizabeth I, and would connect with Yuada, the Watcher, gaining knowledge that he could only speak of after his life had ended. Now, knowing that this was the only way for him to pass on the valuable knowledge that he had gained to other heroes of his world, he allowed himself to be executed. Once he had been beheaded, his wife, Clea, retrieved his head so that she could commune with her late husband in death to learn of the knowledge he had been given. It's all pretty powerful, I think. I think if you can die and then still be like a really cool hero and like help people after you die, that's pretty powerful to me. Number 3, Hulk. David Banner is the 1602 version of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. He would take the place of Sir Nicholas Fury in King James's court after Fury betrayed and abandoned the new king. Initially, Banner was all for eradicating the witch breed and actually believed wholeheartedly in his mission, but after being exposed to the anomaly's energy while shielding his colleague and friend Peter Parquois, he found himself transformed into the creature known as the Hulk. He and Peter had been sent to the Americas to hunt down Fury and kill him on behalf of the king, but after this transformation, David began to question his loyalties and his beliefs. He would eventually return to England to surrender, but during his execution would actually transform into the Hulk and then kill King James. So I feel like if you kill a king, you're pretty powerful as well. I mean, the Hulk is just powerful in general. I think we can all agree. Number 2, Angela the Witch Hunter. As we learn in the main continuity, Angela of Earth 616 is actually Thor's lost sister. But in Earth 311, Angela was introduced as merely a mortal witch hunter who was tasked with hunting down and eliminating witch breeds on the behalf of King James. Later on, during Secret Wars, we would come to know her as a witch hunter who instead hunted demons. At least they seem like demons to me, referred to here as Faustians. Often these were characters we knew from 616, but then twisted into something evil in the style of the 1602 reality. So, you know, having 311 counterparts like Captain James Buchanan. Angela traveled around with her lover and her companion Sarah, working to eliminate these Faustians in order to protect communities all over England from their villainous ways. She is immensely powerful in the end, becoming sort of a combination of her own 616 self and Enchantress after defeating Amora in this reality, but also becoming cursed with her power as a result. But even if you're cursed with power, you're powerful.
And finally, number 1, Flashpoint Wonder Woman. When the Flash accidentally created Flashpoint as a result of attempting to save his mother, the ripple effects changed the timeline to the worst it's ever been. You know, Batman is Thomas Wayne, Superman is in a government facility, and Wonder Woman is the monarch of the Amazons and currently at war with Atlantis. All because she killed Aquaman's wife, who knew Wonder Woman was having an affair with her husband. With all of the normal powers and accessories that make Wonder Woman a formidable foe, this iteration of Wonder Woman seems to lack the empathy that prevents Diana from absolutely losing it and killing everyone. As the war went on, Aquaman and Wonder Woman forged an alliance to take down a mutual enemy, Batman. As both monarchs send their troops to Batman's lair, the world is erased, killing every single inhabitant. Absolutely cruel and bloodthirsty, this Wonder Woman has something that she shares with her Injustice counterpart: her lack of love, and above all, her sickening lack of humanity. Now, I love the Flashpoint timeline with all of my heart, so why not check it and her out for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, Number 1.
And a 10 Future Flash. The Future Flash is certainly an odd character, not due to anything about them, be it physically or otherwise, but because of his motives. The Future Flash is a version of Barry Allen from the future who blamed himself for the death of Wally West. In an effort to correct his mistakes and try to prevent this tragedy, he starts killing enemies to gain enough speed to travel back in time. He starts by killing Gorilla Grodd with a microbomb he phases into his head. Then he eventually kills enough people to travel back to kill one final enemy, himself. His goal this whole time was to travel back to before Wally dies and kill his old self, preventing any of this from happening. At least he thinks. Which honestly is a pretty awful plan if you ask me. Like, I know that it's like, well, alternate timelines or whatever, but if you went back in time and killed yourself, wouldn't you then not be alive in order to go back and kill yourself, thus making it impossible for you to kill a past version of yourself? I mean, you could kill your future self, but not your past one. It just seems odd to me, honestly. Though Future Flash is evidently stopped, he does give Barry a clue about the murder of his mother, saying only one word: Thawne. And at 9, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster version of Batman from the dark multiverse, and no, not the universal one. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but as various Robins kept dying, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods. This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers. So Batman uses the various rogues' weapons to fight Barry, knocking him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill improved Batmobile and drives them both into the Speed Force. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into a Batman with super speed, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who asks him to join Barbados's Dark Knights, whose goal is conquering the multiverse. Eventually, he gets exposed to a large dose of positive energy, which allows Barry Allen to regain control, helping in the fight against the Dark Knights. But the positive energy also kills him, and Red Death explodes into light. Fun. And at 8, Daniel West. First appearing in The Flash Volume 4 number 0 in 2012, Daniel West's mother died while giving birth to him, something that his father never forgave him for. Iris West, as his sister, protected and supported Daniel until he ended up pushing their father down the stairs and crippled him for life. After that incident, due to fear of being shunned by Iris, Daniel fled and became a small-time thug by age 18. When trying to make it to the big times, he was stopped by the Flash and was sent to prison for 5 years. Eventually he got out, but was kidnapped by gorillas and then saved from those gorillas by the Rogues, who then he tried to escape, but got hit with a monorail powered by a Speed Force battery. This is what gave Daniel his speed, although it was dependent on the charge of that battery. So in an effort to go back in time and kill his father to save his relationship with Iris, which is kinda backwards buddy, but you know, you do you, he started killing speedsters to gain enough speed to make the journey. In the end, he was stopped by the Flash, who convinced him to give up his speed. Daniel West is one of the rogues that Future Flash ended up killing in his mission to gain enough speed to, in essence, do the same thing that Daniel wanted to do, except Future Flash was killing himself, not his father. But Daniel officially died in New Suicide Squad Annual number 1 in 2015.
Number 7. Deceased Wonder Woman. Taking place in the Deceased DC universe, Deceased is a miniseries that follows the aftermath of Cyborg's body being used to carry a version of the anti-life equation that ended up turning the general population into zombies. In this miniseries, we see Wonder Woman become a member of the Unliving, which is basically DC's equivalent of zombies, whose whole purpose is to spread anti-life by either infecting or killing living things. They show very little signs of intelligence, and they still retain the ability to utilize their skill sets, powers, and technologies respectively to a surprisingly effective manner. The Infected have also shown numerous times of coming up with very elaborate strategies and tactical decisions to bypass pockets of resistance and cause as much death and destruction as possible. Our Infected Wonder Woman actually showed that she was able to form coherent and full sentences when she was interrogated by Cyborg, implying that she still has some humanity left in her. However, after being set free, she immediately decapitated Cyborg to preserve any secrets she told him. Honestly, all I have to say is Wonder Woman's strength and skills combined with the mind and body of a zombie makes for a scary hero. So check her out for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased, number 1. Number 6, Whom God Destroys Wonder Woman. This version of Wonder Woman only showed up in a 4-issue series called Superman and Wonder Woman Who Gods Destroy. This storyline takes place in an alternate world where Europe is still under the control of the Germans, and Lois Lane actually steps up to the plate as the new Wonder Woman in order to protect those around her from the tyrannical ruling of the original Wonder Woman and Superman. Not a whole lot is known about this evil Wonder Woman other than the fact that she betrayed her home in order to obtain more power. And just like the other evil versions of her, her lack of humanity is incredibly evident as she looks down on Lois Lane's Wonder Woman for just being immortal. The story ends with Lois defeating the evil Wonder Woman, and it is revealed that the gods Zeus and Hera were actually playing a game of chess using the world as their chess pieces. and that's why everything is so messed up. Oddly enough though, the story doesn't quite end there, because once everyone is defeated, everything seems to be pretty much back to normal. Superman, Lois, and Wonder Woman all decide to live together on Superman's fortress on the moon. Check out this miniseries for yourself, starting with 1997 Superman and Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy, number 1. Number 5, Frank Miller's Wonder Woman. Hopefully we all know who Frank Miller is, you know, the writer of The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Born Again. Well, Miller also took a crack at the character that is Wonder Woman in his Batman series The Dark Knight Strikes Back. In this series, heroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel have been forced to work for the government, since their loved ones are being held hostage and are under threat. Superman is even ordered by the president, who turns out to be a computer-generated front for Lex Luthor and Brainiac, to stop Batman. It eventually gets to the point in the story where Superman, Wonder Woman, and their daughter Lara joins forces with Batman once again because they deem his plan to be the only way to get out of this whole mess. Now I'll be honest, this Wonder Woman isn't on this list today because of how dark the story is. It's mostly because this is considered to be one of the worst incarnations of Wonder Woman to date. Now she's definitely the warrior you expect from Wonder Woman, but her cold and quite frankly sexist portrayal in the comics was nothing short of distasteful. It also doesn't help that her humanity was put in question throughout the entirety of the graphic novel. If you feel like you can stomach it, check out this Wonder Woman and this whole series starting with 2002's The Dark Knight Strikes Again, number 1. Number 4, Wonder Woman God of War. Following 2011's Flashpoint event, DC rebooted the entirety of its continuity into the New 52. In the new Wonder Woman, the story of Hippolyta creating Diana from clay is revealed to actually be a lie, and Diana is actually a child of Zeus, and the whole clay bit was a cover story intended to keep Zeus's jealous wife Hera from killing her. Sometime later during her training, Diana became the secret protege of Ares, the god of war, only to have him drop her when she refused to kill for him. Years later, after Diana learned her true origin, she found herself embroiled in the power struggles of her Olympian kin. In the course of one adventure, she had to kill Ares, which made her the new god of war, and although she fought against the role for a while, as the battle against the monstrous firstborn of Zeus heated up, she stepped right into the job. Honestly, who knows what Wonder Woman creator William Marston would have made of this, given that he wrote her as this force of peace and this nemesis of the god of war. He might be happier with the events in DC Rebirth, which implies that the whole, Diana's New 52 adventures didn't actually happen.
Getting close to the end in number 3, Wizard. This version of the Flash actually comes from the Marvel Universe, believe it or not. And while yes, the speedsters are a superhero archetype now, this one is a deliberate reference to the Flash from an unofficial Justice League vs Avengers crossover fight in the Marvel Universe. The Wizard is a member of the Squadron Supreme, which comes from a parallel dimension of the Marvel Universe. Stanley Stewart is his name, and while running late one night, he ran through a strange fog. Over the next few weeks, he gained the ability to run faster than anyone else. The original goal of the Squadron, which Wizard was a founding member of, was to create a utopia, which they would have accomplished. They turned much of the world into a paradise within the first year, but stopped when a former member, known as Nighthawk, convinced them that it was in essence a dictatorship. Shortly after the project ended, multiple members of the team got stranded in the Marvel Universe, but did end up making it home. Penultimately, in at number 2, No Rules to Follow. In an Elseworld story where metahumans are hated, much like mutants in the Marvel Universe, 10 individuals with superpowers banded together to try and get the world to trust them by doing good deeds. These people, who on other Earths would be known as the Flash, Shark, Fire, Dr. Light, Polaris, Power Girl, Poison Ivy, Tasmanian Devil, Changeling, and Metamorpho. But unfortunately, they didn't accomplish their goal, since their attempts to contain a nuclear meltdown made everything worse. After this disaster, metahumans went into hiding, and a few metas, Flash included, begin raiding military bases that had previously attacked them. But after a battle with the Control Squad, which was a group of high-tech operatives with the Wayne Foundation, created to fight the metahuman menace, caused an even further split, resulting in Ivy, Changeling, and Metamorpho all hating the military even more. But when Superman showed himself after some convincing, Wayne funded a new group, made of the original 10 metas minus those who wanted revenge, and replaced those 3 with Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and Superman. This new group, which was dedicated to upholding tolerance and justice for humans and metahumans alike, became known as the Justice League. But this version of the Flash also looks like really weird. It looks like if Juggernaut was cosplaying the Flash. Straight up. Finally, in at number 1, the terrific What's-It. Last time I talked about the Crash, a turtle from Earth C- that has super speed, but now I bring you an even more ridiculous version, the terrific What's-It. Merton McSnurl first appeared in Funny Stuff number 1 in 1944 and was a World War II era hero on Earth C-. He has super speed, super strength, and can fly. And the reason he's called What's-It is because in an effort to conceal his identity, wait for it, he takes off his shell turtle when he puts on his costume, so nobody knows that he's a turtle. That's even funnier than the whole like glasses thing for Superman. This version of the Flash even dresses like Jay Garrick with the helmet and everything. I'm not kidding. It's absolutely incredible. I love it so much. His name is McSnurtle. He's McSnurtle the turtle. Hell yeah, baby.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Devastator. There's a name right there, okay. Bruce Wayne of Earth 1 made his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting. This Batman is one of Barbados' Dark Knights. Now, he started out the usual Batman way, lost his parents, became Batman, hung out with the Justice League. He actually got along with Superman quite well. He genuinely believed in his ideals of hope. But it is Batman we're talking about. Just because he trusted him doesn't mean he wasn't always prepared. Bruce kept the Doomsday virus just in case. So when Superman did go on and become a little crazy and started killing people, Batman figured, okay, now is the time to use this thing. Bruce first used a kryptonite spear to try and do the trick, but Superman just monologued in his face. Nothing was working. So now it's Doomsday time. The Devastator was born. The virus changed Batman instantly, physically of course, but also mentally. Now he had no problem killing what used to be one of his best friends. Using kryptonite breath, Bruce weakened the god and then finished him with some Doomsday spikes. Nice dark note to start the list off. There we go. Number 9, multiverse Batbaby. In part 1 of this list, we of course had to mention the time Batman was shrunk down to the size of a baby, so naturally in part 2, we need more baby goodness. Dark Knights Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights issue 1. Bruce has a plan. Now this version was planning on living a second lifetime. More crimes to solve, more risks to break, more bills to pay. The man is committed. Now he had already taken down the Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Scarecrow at this time, but he wanted more. After his passing, his mind was safely stored in the cyberspace, and it was then transferred into this new body waiting in the Batcave. This time seems way harder for Bruce. See, in the early issues, he just made little trousers and still continued to fight crime. It was fun, it was almost cute. Here, he was rolling downstairs. He couldn't even walk. He probably his pants, and then he just lays down and cries for the rest of the day. The best part is that he has the mind of Bruce still, so those tears just aren't baby tears. That's pure agony. Now he finally figured out, how to use his legs in life. He get the jetpack to make up for those tiny legs, and he still goes on saving the day as the guardian of Gotham. And before we continue on with this weird list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It helps us out so much. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the video. Also, thank you for 1.1 million subscribers. That's huge. That was a nice thing to wake up to. Number 8, Red Sun Batman. Superman Red Sun was released in 2003. It earned Mark Millar an Eisner Award nomination in 2004, but he always wondered what life would be like if Superman was raised in the Soviet Union. What a fun idea. So in this story, the ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm instead of Texas, and as for Bruce Wayne in this reality, well, his parents still end up biting the bullet, but this time it's by Stalin's police force. So his main goal was to get back at that captain of said police force, Roslov. This version of Batman, just look at the attire. How do you not love him off the bat? He kidnapped Wonder Woman, tied her up with her own lasso, rude, and then used her to draw Red Sun Superman out. And of course, it worked like a charm. Using simulated red sunlight, he weakened Superman, locked him in a basement, ideally forever, but Wonder Woman broke free, took care of those red sun lamps, and right before Batman was about to get the beatdown of his life, he detonated a bomb in his own chest. Honestly, I think Red Sun Superman would still be a lot more painful than a chest bomb. It's still dark either way.
And it's 7, Earth X. Earth X, or Earth 10, Flash was born and raised in a world where Germany won World War II. And since this is a sensitive subject for YouTube, I'm going to avoid using specific terms, so my apologies in advance. While his real name is unknown, Der Blitz, as he's known in German, is the member of the, oh god, I'm going to butcher this, Gretchkidtilga. Oh wait, hold on, that's wrong, I need to yell it. Gretchkidtilga! God, I hate myself for that. Which is basically an evil regime version of the Justice League, also referred to as the JL Axis. The current members are Brunhild, the Earth 10 Wonder Woman, Leatherwing, Earth 10 Batman, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Flash, Green Lantern, and Overman, the Superman of Earth 10. This version of the Flash also appears in the Freedom Fighters The Ray animated series that takes place in the Arrowverse, but was interestingly missing from the Crisis on Earth X crossover that featured characters from this show. Instead, this Flash was just Eobard Thawne from Earth 1 wearing Harrison Wells' face, which leads some to believe that Thawne killed the Earth X version of Flash in order to prove himself to the regime. And at 6, Savitar. The This Avatar from the comics is certainly another interesting character, first appearing in Flash Volume 2 number 108 in 1995. The man whose name is still unknown that became Savitar was a Cold War test pilot. As he reached top speed in a test flight for a supersonic fighter plane, the plane was struck by lightning and went down in hostile territory. Once he learned about his speed though, he became obsessed and craved more, like any villain does. He named himself after the Hindu god of motion and spent years studying, learning new powers that no other speedster had mastered. He can protect himself in what is in essence a speed force field, give speed to objects and even other people, and heal injuries instantaneously instead of just way faster. As Savitar's obsession grew, so did his followers, and he became the leader of basically his own self-worshipping cult. That's the dream. And as he desired more, he went after the only speedster around at the time, Johnny Quick. The fight ended up causing Max Mercury to show up, who led him to the speed field where Savitar bounced off. He did at some point return and instead wanted to eliminate his competition, including the Flash, Impulse, and especially Max. But he ended up dying in the Flash Volume 2 number 111 in 1996. Halfway through in at number 5, Capitalist Couriers. First appearing in the Flash Volume 2 number 6 in 1987, the group originally known as the Red Trinity was created by Russian scientist Pyotr Orlov, I totally butchered that, when he and his partner attempted to recreate Flash's super speed abilities after watching a daring rescue. The second group of test subjects was successful and were named the Red Trinity. The group included Anatoly, Bebek, and Cassiopeia, and they became agents for the Soviet military. But here is where it gets weird. When the third Flash came to enlist the help of Dr. Orlov in the issue of saving Jerry McGee's life, the Red Trinity chose to follow Orlov to America. While there, they became infatuated with American culture and chose to stay in the US, opening a business as a team of super speed messengers called Capitalist Courier Service Inc. Cassiopeia has since died because he was running up the side of a building trying to make a delivery when his speed vanished and he fell to his death. This was thanks to Savitar's reappearance. These Russian speedsters literally made Amazon Super Prime. That's hilarious and I love it. That's probably what I would do with my powers, honestly, now that I've gotten the idea from this. Thank you. In at 4, Silent Running. When your world is described as a paradise, there isn't much that you can think to screw it up. That's because you didn't consider volcanic eruptions blotting out the sun, sending that once paradise into an ice age. When this happened, surviving members of the Holy Light religion went on a pilgrimage to find salvation for their people. The leader of the Holy Light, Stephen Mallory, left his sons behind while he went on his journey. Brian and Tristan were left alone, with Tristan taking his father's place as leader while he was gone, even though Brian was the eldest. However, upon their father's return, Tristan killed him. Then the brothers went out into the world in search of lightning, one of the foundations of their religion. They eventually got struck by lightning, which had an interesting effect. Tristan, the one who killed their father, was aged, while Brian was given super speed and the power to create what they call green life. So Tristan kinda freaked out, locking Brian in the heart of a machine that pushes back the ice to create a livable city, because Tristan believed this was necessary to save everyone, but considered himself a living god of sorts. He demanded people obey his will and use their life force to keep himself young for centuries, all the while trying to be blessed by lightning, which I'm guessing means getting struck by lightning over and over again.
Number 3, Saint Batman. We'll ride the dark multiverse train out a little more, taking a look now at Jean-Paul Valley. The original story took place when Batman got his back by Bane in 1993. Azrael took over for the Bat while Bruce healed up, and then things went back to normal over time. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall, we see a world where Jean-Paul Valley refused to give the cape back. They went at it at the Batcave, and instead of Bruce reclaiming the costume, he got a devastating hit to the spine. And to make matters even worse, Saint Batman kept Bruce alive, just, without any body parts, of course. His physical strength is unmatched. This Batman juices. He uses venom in his suit, so he operates at a superhuman level. The ultimate backbreaker this time. Number 2, Speeding Bullets Batman. This Elseworld storyline shows us a future where Kal-El landed in Gotham and was subsequently adopted by the other Martha Wayne. The Waynes did end up meeting their fate, regardless of the fact that their newly adopted son has laser vision. He didn't realize at the time that he could fire heat rays until right after they had died. I mean, that's fair, trauma does things to the body. After this point, Super Bruce wasn't the same at all. He had the powers of a god, but the hatred of the devil. He was a conflicted man. He would repeat the line, the bullets, the bullets, the bullets, over and over again. He was mentally unstable, obviously. So he hid from the world in his mansion of solitude, and over time, Bruce decided that he should use his powers and just be a hero, instead of hiding. Taking up the identity of the Batman, he would patrol the streets looking for crime crime, but like I said, he was still a troubled guy. His version of saving the day was burning the flesh off of criminals. Number 1. Thomas Wayne. Coming from the Flashpoint storyline released in 2011, writer Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert brought us Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, when he was actually the one to become Batman. See, in this universe, Bruce Wayne was actually the one who got shot that night in the alley. The world of Flashpoint is this altered reality that Barry accidentally ends up in, where Thomas is older, more brutal, and he's like this evil, dark Batman. And Bruce's mother, Martha, becomes so traumatized by what happens to her son that in this reality she becomes the Joker. So this Batman is very okay with using guns. In fact, he actually prefers it.
Number 10. Wonder Woman Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, although this is technically in the main continuity, the Wonder Woman that appears in Dark Knight's Death Metal absolutely deserves a spot on this list today because she is one serious badass. Introduced to us in the first issue of Dark Knight's Death Metal, Wonder Woman alongside Swamp Thing is a guard of the demonic-looking prison that holds any villain that does not want to team up with the Batman who laughs. So it would kind of seem like she's working for him, but it's revealed later that is not the case when she just impales and rips the Batman who laughs in two with her new awesome-looking weapon, the Chainsaw of Truth. Wonder Woman's whole goal in this storyline is to correct the mistakes that have been made and to set everything back on track by somehow resetting the timeline. Basically, she's the Wonder Woman we all know and love, stuck in one of the darkest and scariest DC storylines to date, and that is why she is starting off our list today. Check her out for yourself, starting with 2020's Dark Knight's Death Metal, Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9, Bizarra. You can probably guess it from the name, but Bizarra is the Bizarro version of Wonder Woman. Now, if you're not familiar with Bizarro, he is basically an incomplete clone of Superman, which means that Bizarra is an incomplete clone of Wonder Woman. She was created using the powers of the Fifth Dimension and is meant to be the evil counterpart to our Wonder Woman, but I think we all know that Bizarro versions of any hero never really get the job done. Even though Bizarra possesses both the bracelets of submission and the lasso of truth like her counterpart, she's only strong enough to challenge Wonder Woman in a one-on-one duel, and when it comes to brains, oh man, trust me, she does not even come close to Wonder Woman. As a member of the Injustice League of Un-America, Bizarro was one of the many that was captured by Metallo in his attempt to rule over Bizarro World, but was thankfully freed by Bizarro himself. Now, I think my favorite thing about Bizarra and the other Bizarro copies is their way of speaking. She spoke in a very twisted tongue and always meant the opposite of what she said. For example, when she says, "I love you," she actually means, "I hate you." Check her out for yourself in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1. Number 8, Brunhilde. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where many of our favorite heroes have been turned into villainous versions of themselves, comes Valkyrie Brunhilde, the Wonder Woman of this Earth that is based on Norse mythology, as opposed to, the original Greek. On Earth 10, all these superheroes we're familiar with are part of the German army and are believers of fascism, so from that you can probably assume that most of them are pure evil. Brunhilde is a member of the New Reichman alongside other dark iterations of the Justice League members, whose only real goal is to rid the world of the freedom fighters and spread their ideals across the land. The New Reichman are, however, taken down pretty much from the inside after Overman began to feel guilty about his past deeds. Honestly, put simply, Brunhilde is an evil version of Wonder Woman that can and will go to any lengths necessary to get the job done. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1.
Number 7, Magic Batman. Superman Batman Sorcerer Kings is a 4-parter written by Cullen Bunn, beginning with Superman Batman issue 81. On the cover we see Batman's tool belt, but this time it's made of elixirs and potions. What's the deal here? So after witches and warlocks tried to sacrifice our sun, things went south and now every electronic was literally vaporized. That means no more TikTok, sorry. The future was looking quite grim. To see Batman punch warlocks and witches in the mouth, I mean at one point he says, "No more hocus pocus." In part 2, Bruce pulls out a whistle, obviously he gets mocked, and then when the Batwing arrives, it's more than useful. The Batwing being a magical dragon, of course. Number 6, Emo Batman. Back in 1999, we got to see one of the moodiest versions of Bruce Wayne. Coming from Elseworld's 80-page giant, he was one of the members of the group the Pennyworths, who was discovered and signed by Lex Luthor. This sounds funny considering the Batman we know and love, but it's still really sad. For example, Lex didn't care about the well-being of who he signed as long as they're making that moolah. And on top of that, Bruce was struggling with substance abuse problems and his last album bombed. It didn't even go gold. How sad is that? So soon after, Lex sold his record label to Darkside Incorporated. Imagine watching Battle of the Bands and emo Bruce Wayne starts setting up shop. What a dream show. Number 5, Prohibition Batman. This alternate version of Batman first appeared in Batman Scar of the Bat, but this time it was Elliot Ness. Elliot was a federal agent, and instead of going toe-to-toe with the Joker, Elliot is now trying to bring down Al Capone. Now of course this takes place during the Prohibition era in Chicago, and Elliot was part of a team referred to as the Untouchables. I love this alternate version because it's real history that's being played with. Elliot Ness was a real guy who led the Untouchables in 1903. The story is a fun one-off, but Elliot does reappear later on in Teen Titans Volume 3, Issue 31. It's a brief appearance, but he's still out there. I wonder if real-life Elliot Ness ever read DC Comics back in those early days. Him and his Tommy gun reading Batman in a speakeasy? I can see it. Number 4. Batman the Silenced. The original Hush storyline by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee introduces Bruce's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot. Out of jealousy, he tries to take down Batman using the alias Hush, but in Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush, we see a different life play out this time. When Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot that fateful night, Bruce was of course devastated, but Alfred didn't end up taking him in like normal continuity. Instead, he was taken in by those Elliots. Bruce didn't work through his trauma by fighting crime and saving lives. Instead, he grew more and more unstable from his childhood, so much so that the Elliots transferred him to a mental asylum, while Thomas Elliot grew up to take control over Wayne Industries. Horrible, what a horrible alternate reality. So once Tommy became a senator, he was able to transfer Bruce to Arkham Asylum, where Jonathan Crane would perform these operations. While in there, Alfred sent in Jack Napier as a mole to help Bruce, and Alfred also told Bruce about his parents and what really happened. So Jack was in there to help Bruce get in touch with people who can help him get payback. So he received training in every field from lunatics in Arkham Asylum. He came out talented but tainted after faking his own death. Once free, he went by the name of Batman the Silenced.
Number 3. Superwoman. I feel like we all knew this alternate Wonder Woman was going to end up on this list today. Hailing from Earth 3, the Earth that is said to be the birthplace of evil, Superwoman is a renegade Amazon who is also taking on the identity of Lois Lane, depending on the version that we're talking about here. Depending on her origin, she is either from Paradise Island or its antimatter equivalent known as Damnation Island. While there are many versions of her out there, one thing that they all have in common is her sadistic personality and the love triangle she has with her colleagues. Equipped with a lasso of submission, a barbed and much scarier looking version of the lasso of truth that forces the captor to not only comply with the user, but also fall in love with them, which she has used a few times to her advantage, if you know what I mean. As a member of the crime syndicate, she helped imprison most of the members of the various Justice Leagues in the Firestorm Matrix and began a reign of terror over the world, eliminating any resistance in their way. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or skip ahead to 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 2, Injustice Wonder Woman. Easily one of the most dark and evil versions of Wonder Woman out there. Not only did she see Superman's descent into evil before it ever happened, but she also actively encouraged it, practically manipulating the Man of Steel when he was at his worst for her own personal gain. Not only that, but by the events of the original Injustice video game, she had been ruling Paradise Island with an iron fist and showed absolutely no remorse. She served as Superman's right hand and took the place of Lois Lane as his new love interest. However, he clearly showed no love towards her because he was still mourning the loss of his dead wife, who he killed himself. When she is confronted by her mainstream counterpart, the mainstream Wonder Woman reprimands her for blindly following a man who does not feel as much devotion to her as she does to him. And once Wonder Woman is defeated, she is taken by her fellow Amazons to be imprisoned for her role in the regime and is later seen on Kahndaq during the events of Injustice 2 as she has been exiled. Take a look at her story for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us number 1, or honestly just feel free to replay the games.
Number 1. Thor of the Thunders. Or just Thor, or Donald the Ancient One. Donald the Ancient One is the old member of the Templar Order who ends up forced into becoming the mortal host for the pagan god known as Thor of the Thunders. This transformation happens when Donald is forced to defend himself and those he travels with while transporting the Templar artifact disguised as a stick that is really Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Thor is obviously one of the most powerful superhero characters in Marvel Comics, and he remains so even in this alternate world belonging to the 1602 universe of Earth 311. Number 10. Toad. While Toad might not be known for being super powerful strength-wise or even power-wise in comparison to some other characters in the 1602 universe, he does hold power and information. Toad was the one who managed to put the Grand Inquisitor Enrique, aka Earth 311's Magneto, in jeopardy, and almost got him him burnt at the stake. Of course, the Inquisitor did manage to escape, and despite Toad's betrayal, even took the Brotherhood member along with him, because he didn't really know what else to do with him. Of course, Toad probably wouldn't have dared to betray Enrique's confidence in most cases, but when his life was threatened by the Pope, he proved how dangerous he could be in regards to the secrets that he had guarded. Number 9. Natasha Romanova. In this reality, Natasha was a spy who ended up betraying Matthew Murdoch on the behalf of Count Otto von Doom, whom she took as a lover. Natasha remained loyal to Doom even after he was disfigured, but when she questioned his plan to use his flying machine to voyage to the end of the world, he made quick work of her and tossed her overboard, where she presumably plummeted to her death. Although Natasha died fairly easily and was just a human, she was still quite an adept spy. Her biggest mistake was probably just aligning herself with Doom in the first place, and thinking that it would ever be wise to question him or freely speak her mind, even when he was the one asking her to. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, you want to learn more about 1602, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I want to tell you more about 1602, so do that thing. Number 8. Lizard. The Lizard is the Earth 311 counterpart of the villain with the same name from Earth 616. He was once the philosopher Curtis Connors, who ended up contracting the bubonic plague. Connors attempted to cure himself with a concoction made in part out of dinosaur eggs. Kind of an interesting ingredient to be like, maybe this will fix it, but hey. Despite curing him, the cure he'd made also caused him to transform into a giant raptor. Oh yeah, did I also mention that there are dinosaurs in the reality of 1602? Because, yeah, there be dinosaurs here. Probably meant to exist as a version of the Savage Lands of Earth 616. Connor still had his mind after this transformation, but appearing as a monster, allied himself with another who had suffered a similar transformation, Baron Victor Octavius. Lizard was sent after the Spider, and while attempting to capture him, killed the assassin Bullseye, who was attempting to kill the Spider for his own master. Number 7. Medusa. Medusa in this reality is not a hero, but is known as a villain. She was a member of the Four who are frightful, as she kind of was in the main continuity as well for a time. Medusa, instead of being an inhuman, was simply a Gorgon who turned men to stone with her gaze. She was the paramour of Wizard, her fellow teammate. However, she accidentally turned him to stone when her veil was torn off by him by accident. I feel like being in a relationship with a Gorgon would be challenging for this very reason, because you'd have to be really careful about not looking into their face or catching their gaze. And that's of course what the protective veil was for, but in the end, having it obviously did not save the wizard, so you can wear a protective veil, but sometimes it might accidentally get ripped away. Number 6. Baron Victor Octavius. I love this alternate for Doc Ock. I seriously love it. It's so cool, it looks cool, it's unique. Baron Victor Octavius, like Curtis Connors, also suffered from the bubonic plague. In an attempt to cure himself, he created a concoction using octopi blood. Also a strange ingredient, but I digress. Which also ended up working, but slowly transformed him into a hybrid octopus-like creature. Because the transformation from man to octopus was happening gradually, Octavius hoped to revert the process and find a cure. When he learned of the Spider, he set out to have him captured, as he figured he might be the cure, or more, the cure might be in his blood. It's kind of Morbius? Mobius? Man, which one is the vampire one? No, Mobius is DC, and Marvel, because there's Agent Mobius. Morbius is the vampire one. It's kind of like a Morbius thing actually, because I think Morbius also believed for a time that the cure was in like Peter Parker's blood for his own disease. But he ended up going after the Spider after he had already run mad experiments on captured humans and Witchbreed. Witchbreed are actually Earth 311's version of mutants, in case you didn't know. In the end, Victor would fully transform and believe that he had actually evolved into something more superior, embracing his new form. I think he went a little crazy. However, this was short-lived, as he ended up defeated by one of his scientists, Henri Lepim, who rebelled against him while in his giant form, squashing Octo Octavius with his ginormous foot. What a way to go. Ugh. Number 5. Master Osborn. While Norman Osborn in this reality more hunted for powers than possessed them, he still had his sharp wit and his conniving ways, which granted him more power than you might think in the 1602 reality of Earth 311. Osborn initially allied himself with King James in an attempt to try and discover First Nations people's source of power. Fortunately, he would not find it, but this would not stop him from trying time and time again. Even when it seemed as though Master Osborn had been defeated, he would find a way way to rebuild his reputation or escape punishment, and come back usually even more determined to secure what he believed the First Nations folks of the Americas were hiding. He was the one who killed Virginia Dare and would go on to unsurprisingly become the nemesis of Spider-Man, aka the Spider as he was known in this reality. Number 4. Emperor Numenor. While Namor is generally given anti-hero or even hero status on Earth 616, also he's definitely played the role of villain as well in the reality of 616 before, so there's that. In the 1602 reality, Namor is Emperor Numenor, the ruler of the city of the gods, known as Bensalem, that exists beyond the edge of the world. He plotted to steal away both Sue Storm and Jonathan Storm of the Four from the Fantastic to serve as both his and his cousin Rita's consorts. However, his plan to do so failed and he ended up being double-crossed by his co-conspirator Count Doom, which is usually how it goes for Namor in 616. The death of Namor also caused the destruction of Bensalem, which was tied to his lifeblood. Numenor not only possesses the abilities, strength, and durability of his 616 counterpart, but he also of course rules the powerful and mysterious Bensalem on Earth 311, which itself is advanced and holds a lot of power. Number 3. Purple Man. While Kilgrave is not really a villain within the alternate reality of Earth 311, he is the one that actually created this alternate universe. He hails from the alternate reality of Earth 460, where he became the president for life. Captain America of Earth 460, however, refused to accept Purple Man's presidency, continuing the fight for democracy, and in so doing had himself thrown back into the past by Purple Man. Purple Man didn't want any reason for people to basically rally around Captain America's cause, and decided the best way to get rid of him and destroy any rebellion would be to place Captain America into the past, as opposed to killing him in that present day and likely making him a martyr for others to rally around. In so doing, Purple Man actually created the reality of Earth 311, and Marvel heroes and villains surfaced years before they were meant to, appearing in 1602 on Earth instead of later in the 1940s and beyond. Number 2. Count Otto von Doom. Doom is always powerful, no matter what reality we're talking about, though in the 1602 universe he is also powerfully good at messing things up. Case in point, he ends up hunting for a powerful artifact that he intends to steal from the Knights Templar. When he manages to kidnap the old man Donnell and the artifact, he ends up being bamboozled into believing the artifact is a golden sphere, when in reality this item is actually a bomb, not the artifact. Doom attempts to use the artifact, only to discover it is a bomb when it blows up right in front of him, leaving him disfigured. Seeking a cure, he ventures to a city at the end of the world, the home of Namor, or Emperor Numenor here, known as Bensalem, and in attempting to conquer this city, ends up destroying it instead. Oops. Number 1. Enchantress, aka the Faustian Queen, or the Fairy Queen. Enchantress used Kip Marlowe's play Dr. Faustus to make citizens believe in demons, and seek them out to make deals with them, i.e. her. When they did such, Enchantress would appear before them as whatever they expected to see or desired to see, and would make bargains with said people. After making a deal with her, however, the unsuspecting victim would also be left with a little piece of her inside them, which would cause them to transform into a demon-like creature known as a Faustian. Angela the Witch Hunter and her love Sarah ended up hunting down these Faustians, and as such were made to do battle with Enchantress. Despite her great power, Angela was able to defeat Enchantress, but in so doing became cursed with said power, and herself became the new Faustian Queen. Number 10. Captain Namor. In this reality, Namor is the captain of the submarine vessel known as Dorma, which is usually disguised as a fishing trawler. He is the ally to Tony Stark's Iron Man in this reality and helps the adventurer Tony Stark during his quest to find the hidden underwater city of Atlantis. Namor ends up losing his ship during this adventure and later saves Tony Stark's life because of this, claiming that Stark owes him a ship, which, yeah, is fair and also a good reason to save his life. Captain Namor doesn't have any superpowers to speak of, but still keeps his pointed ears in this reality, and this is because Namor actually sliced his own ears and the ears of his crew to help him identify them, making their ears resemble shark fins. I mean, ouch, but hey, it does look cool. Number 9. Angel. Thomas Holloway was the hero known as Angel. He and his twin brother Robert grew up at Welfare Pen, where their father was a prison guard. As such, he learned much from the inmates at Welfare Pen about the criminal underworld as he grew up. After the corrupt system resulted in the death of their teacher, Sean Cassidy, and later their father, who took his own life, Thomas was taken in by a well-off family who raised him. He and his brother Robert worked together, aiming to make the world a better place, becoming both investigators and vigilantes. Thomas Holloway was given the nickname nickname Angel when he was a kid for saving one of the prisoners at Welfare Pen from the electric chair. He would later adopt this name as his superhero mantle. Angel didn't actually possess any superpowers per se, but he was a skilled acrobat, fighter, and detective. And in the Noirverse, that's all you really need here. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, just a quick reminder to click that like if you want to hear about maybe more from the Noirverse or maybe just more from alternate realities in general. Ooh, alternate realities. Number 8. Wolverine. Wolverine in the Noirverse is still pretty powerful, but is not a mutant with powers in this continuity. Still, he does fight with his signature trademark weapons, his claws. Except that the claws we see him brandish in the alternate reality of Earth 90214 are weapons and not actually his own bones. Wolverine, oddly enough, has two different backstories in Noir, and it's never really explained as to if they actually connect, are related, or rather which is considered to be the actual true one in this continuity. In one series we see him as a bootlegger who spends most of his days intoxicated, and in another he is known as a hard-boiled detective with a dark and troubled past. Either way though, he's still tough as nails and the best at whichever he does. Number 7. Mr. Castiglione, or Frank Castle as he's also known in the Noir universe. Frank Castiglione Sr. was a single parent who returned home to New York City after fighting in World War I. His wife had died from cancer, and so he was left to raise their son Frank Jr. alone. Instead of wearing his skull vest or t-shirt in this reality, this version of Frank actually has a skull tattoo on his chest. Pretty badass. He attempted to protect and train his son when their family got tied up in a gang war. Mr. Castiglione is an experienced fighter and firearms expert, similar to his 616 counterpart, but just based in the Prohibition era instead. Number 6. The Demon. Kurt Wagner here is more of a neutral figure, really, if that. But in the main continuity of Earth 616, Kurt is considered a hero and a member of the X-Men, and so for that reason we're just gonna count him here as a hero for the purpose of this list. Kurt the Demon Wagner, as he's known in this reality, claims to be the world's greatest escape artist. He ended up being hired by Weapon X, which in the reality of 90214 is tied to the German government, and was working to capture the American spy Mimic. He made his first appearance in X-Men Noir, The Mark of Cain in issue number 1. Number 5. White Widow. White Widow is Felicia Hardy. She, like her 616 counterpart, usually anyways, doesn't really have any superpowers in this universe of Earth 90214. She also becomes infatuated with Spider-Man here, but is primarily involved with various villains and mob bosses. Before all of that though, she was the lover of Benjamin Urich, and acted as his contact when it came to gathering evidence on various officials and basically looking at all the corruption that was going on in the city. She managed to gather this information through her club, the Black Cat. After Urich's death, Felicia confronted his murderer, the Chameleon, who was disguised as Jonah Jameson, Urich's employer, and shot him to death. I love how much of like a fatale she is in this. It's so cool. Number 4. Daredevil. I actually really like this alternate version of Daredevil. I like him a lot. He has powers very similar to his Earth 616 counterpart, and like his main continuity version, is also blind. But what I really love about him is his backstory. He became blind after attempting to defend his father, a boxer, who was attacked in front of him and killed for not throwing a fight. Young Matt attempted to defend his father, and as a result got his head smashed into a wall, causing him to become permanently blind. Daredevil here also gets his alias from his profession as a stage performer, where he is known for his amazing stunts, hence his name. While he isn't a lawyer here, he does assist his friend Foggy Nelson, who in this reality is a detective. Everybody's a detective in the Noirverse. I love it. Number 3. Punisher. Punisher Noir, as he's known, is Frank Castiglione Jr., the son of Frank Castiglione Sr. His whole vengeance mission is actually about avenging his dad's death as opposed to his children and wife. Caught up in a gang war after refusing to pay the Schultz's protection money, Frank Sr. was attacked, and Frank Jr. decided to take up arms and get revenge for his father's death. Frank Sr. had taught his son well, preparing him for what he knew would be the war to come as a result of their choice to not pay that protection money. As such, the Punisher here is very similar to his 616 counterpart when it comes to his skills with weapons, tactics, explosives, and hand-to-hand combat. Number 2. Iron Man. Iron Man doesn't have any superpowers of his own, but instead relies on technology for his super abilities, like on Earth 616. Although I think on Earth 616 now Tony might have some actual powers attached to his body, but yeah, I think he can control tech. Tony comes armed with his own Iron Man armor here in the Noirverse. Initially, he was on a hunt for the Jade Mask, which he believed would cure his unexplained heart condition, as opposed to relying on the electrical device which kept him alive. He would be betrayed on this expedition and later team up with Captain Namor on his ship, the Dorma, to search for the lost city of Atlantis. In the reality of 90214, Tony's father, Howard, is also revealed to be the supervillain Baron Zemo. What a twist! Betrayal after betrayal for Tony here. Number 1. Spider-Man. Spider-Man in this reality does still have his powers, but is also known for being a decent investigator besides. He would go on to take on such villains as the Goblin, who in this reality is a powerful mob boss. The Goblin was also the one responsible for his Uncle Ben's death here, which is a part of his vendetta against him. It's personal, like it usually is with Goblin in most other realities for Peter besides. Spider-Man actually has the most villains probably of anyone in the Noirverse, but I guess that's because most of the Noirverse, like, he's the draw for it. It's very Spider-Man focused for a lot of the stuff we see. This version of Peter is also capable of producing organic webbing and is willing to fight with firearms.